Hey there, it's Kat, and this is Brews and Reviews. Welcome to my July 2018 wrap-up. This month I read 11 books, so I'm not going to dilly-dally, I'm just going to get on with this. So the first book that I read this month was actually given to me by a very good friend of mine. Thank you very much, Mike. And this is American Assassin by Vince Flynn. It's a bit of a different read for me, along the same sort of line as Andy McNabb's, because I'm sort of going for a more adult action-y type book. Rather than contemporary set in our world, I'm going for like action set in our world, because I find that more interesting. So this book follows a guy called Mitch Rapp, and he basically goes into the special forces, where the kind of special forces where you're so undercover that you technically don't exist anymore, which I really like, that sort of thing. And it's really interesting because he's really good at what he does, and it goes from his training through to him trying to him going on a job that may or may not go completely awry. It's really interesting and I really enjoyed it, and actually I really want to watch the film now, so yeah, it's good. Next up, I decided it was about time that I read another serial killer book, because you've got to include one of those every so often. And the book that I chose to read was Random by Craig Robertson. It's a bit weird, this book. It's basically about a serial killer who just chooses people to kill completely randomly. They must have nothing to do with them, to do with him or anything like that, and it's interesting. It can get really dark and quite gross, and I wasn't particularly a fan of the fact that there seemed to be quite a lot of fat shaming, but you are in the mind of the serial killer, and the guy is like a creeper and disgusting and gross anyway, so kind of fits in with his head that he would probably be that kind of person that fat shames people. It kind of like let me down for like that sort of thing, because I was like, oh, but he could be like, it tried to go at the book, the reasons for why he was doing what he was doing in an interesting way, but I think part of the problem was it tried to make you feel for the killer, but also this guy's just randomly killing people in horrific ways. I'm like, I don't want to feel for him, he's a horrific person, so it kind of failed on that front. Yeah, so that was Random. I think I gave it like 3 or 4 stars. It was okay, it wasn't written badly, I read it really quickly, and you know, was what it was. Then I moved into Read-a-thon, which is the first of 2 readathons that I did this month. And the first book that I read for that was Abandoned by Meg Cabot, which is basically a Hades Persephone retelling, and I shouldn't have liked it, but I did. I feel like if I didn't have an attachment to Hades Persephone sort of retellings and romances to begin with, then I would have found this really problematic. As it is, I found it quite problematic, but I could kind of look over it because I like Hades Persephone things, and I know that makes me a terrible person, but I gave it 4 out of 5 stars because something didn't quite hit for me in the end, and I feel like a lot of things could have been better, but I was really intrigued with it, and as soon as I finished it I kind of wanted to read the next one, so that's got to mean something. The next book that I read was Ghost King by David Gemmell. This is a King Arthur retelling that goes more along the lines of Uther Pendragon, and it does have like a Lancelot, Guinevere love triangle in, which is the only reason this book doesn't get 5-star in my opinion, because it also goes down the sort of lines where there are alternate universes, it references immortality and gods to do with like Greek mythology and Roman mythology and Norse mythology, and it gets really interesting and also really fucked up at times. But I will say that this has my favourite explanation for the Lady of the Lake ever, because it just works really well, and I really enjoyed that, and I always remember it was actually the only thing I remembered about this book before rereading it. I just really enjoyed it. It doesn't have the same sort of visualness that David Gemmell's like Drenai series does for me, because I really enjoy how visual they are and how you can just think about something and completely imagine it, because it's described so well. This is more interesting because it has mythological elements, and it sort of references a bunch of things that if you're familiar with the King Arthur myth and just other myths in general, then it's really well worth reading. Then I decided to listen to The Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller. Everybody raves about this book, right? Yeah, I really like the book. Okay. This book is a Troy retelling from more of the point of view of Patroclus, and you follow Patroclus and Achilles as they fall in love, and it hits you and feels very, very hard. Now, the reason that I didn't give this book 5 stars, because I know so many people have given this book 5 stars and said it's absolutely perfect, it's because I am in my reading of a Troy retelling that I would really, really look for an actual battle. But because you're with Patroclus the whole time, you don't really have any of the battles, because he doesn't really go to any of them, so I'm kind of missing the battles. But that's just genuinely my preference as a reader. The love story element of it was absolutely perfect, and like made me really sad at the end. So yeah, it was really good. I just think for my personal taste, I would have enjoyed having gone to the battles more, because I think I was very, very familiar with the tale to begin with. Next up, I read Sea Witch by Sarah Henning. So I had this as an ARC from NetGalley, and yeah, I really enjoyed this book. First off, I thought it was quite slow, and it very much took a lot of time to set the scene. You were in a Danish sort of whaling town, and you sort of understand how important the sea is to them. So that's sort of the build-up elements of it, and it's very slow, and then it hits like the 75% mark, and then everything hits the fan, and it gets really good, really quickly, and I was like, this is what I wanted the whole book to be about! But I wonder maybe if it wouldn't have been so effective if the rest of the book had been sort of like less of a slow burn. Because like the end 25%, I was like, must read, must read. I was like, every time I went on break at work that day, I was like, I'll just read this on my phone. I'll just read this now, because I couldn't put it down. If you are interested in Little Mermaid retellings, then I would definitely check that one out. It's not a straight Little Mermaid retelling, it's just more of a Ursula origins sort of story, but done in an interesting way, and I just really enjoyed it. Like, my problem with Little Mermaid retellings always is the insta-love, and I think it's done in an interesting way in this book, so I'll take it. I'll read it. I enjoyed it, so yeah. The next book that I read is actually a graphic novel, and that is The Adventures of Superhero Girl by Faith Evan Hicks. This is a really, really short comic strip style graphic novel. They usually have about 6 panels each page, and they're just really cute. Like, I really enjoy Superhero Girl. She's a bit crap, but also she's like, well, I know I'm a bit crap, and she's got her older brother who is vastly superior to her in terms of superheroing, but she's awesome. And my favourite panel in here involved existential crises, which is far too real, so yeah. If you fancy a really, really cute short read, then I would check this one out, because it was really fun. Next up we move into the biannual BookTubeAthon, where I only read 2 books, so I kind of sucked at the biannual BookTubeAthon, but oh well. The first book that I read was the group book, The Wicked Deep by Shay Earnshaw. This book is basically about 3 witches who were drowned in a town about 200 years ago, and every year they come back and they kill some boys because revenge and stuff. It's very nostalgic for Hocus Pocus, sort of practical magic type thing. I really enjoyed it. I can see why a lot of people would see problems in this book. It does have insta-love in it, and I know I've been saying I hate insta-love. This, I didn't so much mind it. I just kind of liked it. The way that it was done, I just sort of didn't want to stop reading this book after I got into it, and I found like the flashbacks really interesting, and just the whole atmosphere of the place was very stylized, and I really liked it. But also, the police in this town suck. They really suck. Just saying. Another book that I read for the biannual BookTubeAthon is The Confession of Fitzwilliam Darcy. This is a Pride and Prejudice retelling from Darcy's point of view. It is what it is. It's basically Jane Austen fanfiction, but I still kind of liked it. At first, I had a lot of trouble with it, because when it covers scenes that you've already seen in Pride and Prejudice, it's kind of dull. It's basically just Darcy saying, I shouldn't like... Oh, it's just spilled out all over me. Well, now I had to put that down because I can't be trusted with the coffee in the coffee cup. So anyway, it's a little bit like Darcy is rehashing thoughts and just going, I shouldn't like Elizabeth. I kind of like Elizabeth. I shouldn't, but I do. And he just goes over and over the same thoughts over and over again, and it's really annoying. So when it got to the parts that weren't featured in Pride and Prejudice, that was way more interesting, and I kind of got behind it a little bit more. I was more interested in it, and yeah, I quite enjoyed it by the end. It's a solid 3 stars because it wasn't anything special, it wasn't anything new. Mary Street didn't do anything particularly special with it, so you get a 3 stars because it was just okay. And now to the book that I've said that I'm going to read for ages and finally got around to. I listened to The Raven Boys by Maggie Stiefvater. I really enjoyed that book. It was so good. I can totally understand what people were saying about her style of writing being so different, and like the type of story that's being told is so just sort of unusual, the way that it's done. It kind of felt to me a little bit like, you know, The Foxhole Court. I read that a month ago? I think I read that last month. And the sort of dysfunctional boys group, that, just with like mythological elements. And I was just really into it. I got really into it really quickly, and I just really liked it. Now I think I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars. And I think that has something to do with the fact that I listened to it. When I was listening to it, I kept thinking, I wish I was reading this, because I feel like you would get a lot more from her writing style having like just absorbed the words yourself rather than hearing someone else say them. I don't know what it is about her style, but I'm definitely going to be buying all of the books in the series and sort of reading them. I think I'll read The Raven Boys again just to get the feel that I think it deserves, because I really enjoyed it and I want to see if that affects the rating that I gave it. Now, I feel like I need to give some sort of explanation for this book, because this book is from the Dark Shelf. That's what I call it, because basically I bought a bunch of books a long time ago on the 2 for £5 offer where I used to work, so it was like 3 for £4, and like you can't resist that sort of thing. So this is around the same time that 50 Shades was a massive hit, and a bunch of other books came out, and I was really interested to see if I found them all as harmful as I found 50 Shades of Grey. Now I bought a bunch of these books and they just sat on the shelf. I've never read any of them. So I'm like, I should probably read them. I should probably actually read them. So this time I read The Diary of a Submissive by Sophie Morgan. This one wasn't as harmful, I will say that. It's definitely a sex book though. Definitely a sex book. It's basically like moves from one erotica type scene to another erotica type scene. Very vivid erotica type scenes, might I add. Yeah, so if you are kind of grossed out by that, then really don't pick this one up. It's not a romance book, it is more of a, I know, I'm not going to say a sex guide, because that's not what it is. But it goes into more of the reasons that she is a submissive and the reasons that she thinks that that is the choice that she's made and what that does for her, rather than 50 Shades being more of a romance novel with sort of kinky elements to it. This is like kink all over and like not really any romance at all. It wasn't a harmful book, and there were some things in there that you thought, okay, I understand why you're doing this. Like, you could sort of understand her motivation more, but, you know, it wasn't actually that interesting. So it was basically just sex scene, sex scene, sex scene, sex scene, argument, sex scene. And then it was like, okay, done. So I read this book from the Dark Shelf. Going to be reading another one next month, because maybe if I read like one every month, the shelf will be empty by the end of it, and like I can either unhaul them or do whatever I want with them, but because they've just been sat there and I just have to sort of go, yeah, it's just the Dark Shelf. So this month I went to see 2 films in the cinema. The first of which was Incredibles 2, because anyone who knows me knows that I love The Incredibles, and so I thought this film was really good. I really enjoyed it. It made me laugh out loud so many times, and yeah, I just really enjoyed it. I thought it was a tiny bit predictable. It's really predictable, but it's really enjoyable, so it kind of makes up for that. And it didn't let me down. Because, you know when you've been waiting for a film for ages and then finally comes and you're like, oh, sadness. It's very, very not good. Very, very not good. So, I enjoyed The Incredibles. I really like all the characters, and I kind of like where they went with it. I thought they did Mr. Incredible a little bit of a disservice in having him be the sort of guy that isn't so great about his wife being more successful than him, or being like, that annoyed me a little bit, because I was like, I know he wants to be like the centre of attention, but I don't think he's that much in need of being the centre of attention. But otherwise, I loved what they did with the characters. Jack is the best. Jack and Edna is life. I just want more Jack and Edna, please, please, please. The side characters, the new supers that were introduced, I really liked those. I won't say very much about them because just part of the funniness of the film is in seeing it, so I'm not going to spoil it. But it was really good, really funny, and I really enjoyed it. The second film that I went to see was Hotel Artemis. Now, this film stars Jodie Foster, and it's about a hotel that fixes up criminals. Set in like 2028, and it's in the middle of a riot throughout LA. People are rioting because they can't get water for free anymore, and everyone's like, yeah, give me water. So this ends up being a really horrible night, and lots of criminals end up in the Hotel Artemis. There's a lot of different things going on, and it's just a really cool film. I really liked it. I think they could have gone into the characters a bit further. I actually think the film would have benefited from being about half an hour longer, with a little bit more explanation of the characters and just delving into them a little bit more, having them do a little bit more. Because everything they did do I really liked, I just didn't think it was enough. Like, it just missed the mark. It was very good, and I'd definitely watch it again. I'd like to own that film actually, because I would like to watch it again, but I just think it would have benefited from that extra time and not throwing away Jeff Goldblum like Jurassic World did. Because why is everyone having Jeff Goldblum in a film and then using him for like 2 seconds and then being like, bye Jeff Goldblum, bye! I think it could have gone into a lot of these things further and would have been really great. As it is, it was a good film and I really enjoyed it, and I'd definitely watch it again. Now, the film that I missed out this month that I really wanted to go and see but didn't have time to see was something Marrowbone. I think it's like The Haunting of Marrowbone, The Children of Marrowbone, or something like that. I really wanted to see that film, but I missed it because there are so many big releases at the moment. Everything's getting pushed out of the cinema really quickly. There were like 2 days for Hotel Artemis, and I think Marrowbone was on the same sort of screening structure, and it was really annoying, so I missed that one. Next month, Ant-Man and the Wasp. Yes! I'm very excited for that one. So those were the books that I read in July. Quite a few, and yeah, I just kind of hope I can keep up that progress in August. I am actually going on a 10-day holiday in August, so that's usually where I get a lot of books read. Like, in normal me gets a lot of books read. That was normal me before BookTube me, which reads a lot more books. So maybe I'm gonna go absolutely mental on holiday and read all the books, and like August wrap up could be like 30 books. That's not gonna happen. That's completely unridiculous. But you know, so August is gonna be a fun time. If you like this video, please leave a like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!